Coming to the last session of the day, another recording part of any law is the penalties. How the penalties can change the whole things. First, the previous speakers already explained us how the law is there, how the law is flowing, from where the law is came and where we are living on those provisions. The penalties are important from tax practice also. So if any penalty is levied by under any law, those and payment is which is being made is not allowed a deduction for the purpose of income tax purpose. Recently, Supreme Court decision which has been there in the month of September, it's a 3-bench decision, where some penalty was levied by stock exchange. There are some far-reaching observations made by the Supreme Court there. The issue before Supreme Court was that whether the dues which are to be collected by stock exchange will take priority over the income tax dues or not. And they said this is secured, the lien was there on the membership card, and they said this is secured amount to be collected, so this will take a priority over the income tax dues. And in the meantime, they also made the observation that the stock exchange which levies the penalty is made under the section 7A or 8 of the SCRA, and this they are relying on the General Process Act. They said this is a, though it rules are made by stock exchange, but they are subordinate legislation, and once they come under subordinate legislation or the some rules made under some law, the greater question for the chartered accountants in the tax practice would be there, or even for audit practice, that how whether this amount will be disallowed under section 37(1), explanation section 37(1) or not. With this, we come to the topic for the day, penalties settlement violation. May I request Neha to introduce the speaker.
Friends, it gives me an immense pleasure to introduce Ashwin. She's a very good friend of mine, and she's a commerce graduate, an MBA from Madurai Kamraj University, and also a fellow member of Institute of Company Secretaries. She started her career as a private merchant banker, and later on she joined SEBI as a Grade D officer. She was promoted as Deputy General Manager, and after that she started her practice in 2002. At SEBI, she handled various portfolios which included issue management, inspection of intermediaries and stock exchanges, collective investment schemes and managing companies. Later, when she started her practice in 2002, she is specializing in SEBI-related matters. She is a regular faculty at Institute of Company Secretaries, Institute of Chartered Accountants, and at National Institute for Securities Markets. She also is a faculty at BSc Institute for Capital Markets. She has written many articles on preferential allotment, rights issue of securities, takeover code, and she's been nominated as a member of the management committee of Institute of Company Secretaries, Center for Corporate Governance, Research and Training, Belapur. May I request Kanubhai to hand over a moment to his Ashwin.
Good evening to all of you. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on how to settle violations and what would be the possible impact in case we don't settle and go ahead with adjudication, and what would be the kind of penalties. As Mr. Paras Samla was telling us, penalties are very, very huge if there is a violation or a non-compliance under the securities laws. And SEBI of late has been laying a lot of stress on compliance and non-compliance. Even the slightest non-compliance is not being taken lightly by them. But I'm sure all of us present here, there will not have been an occasion where people made a mistake. Some of it is by oversight, some of them intentional, some of them technical, some of them very slight, very small. Some of them very major. Some of them, of course, deliberately, can't help it, has to be done because of pressures. But then whatever be the kind of mistake or non-compliance, actions will have to follow. Some of the action will be very severe, some of them just a small fine and we get away with it. And under the SEBI regulations, as you know, SEBI has several regulations. And some of the common non-compliances or violations, as sometimes we call, non-compliance is a lighter word, violation is a stronger term. So it depends on how we want to take it. So would be under the takeover regulations, both 1997 and 2011, under the insider trading regulations of 1992, sometimes incorrect disclosures in the offer documents, DLF case, after a long time they said you made an incorrect disclosure in the prospectus. They didn't catch them at that point in time, but after 8 years now, such a strict action. So any time, any incorrect disclosure, any non-disclosure could land in trouble. Or for that matter, even Sahara. They said it's an incorrect disclosure. Investor grievances. As you know, SEBI has been formed on the pedestal of protection of investor interest. So naturally, not attending to investor grievances would call for very severe action from SEBI. That is considered as a grade 1 violation. Even under the violations you can grade, the topmost, most severe or the serious violation is non-redressal of investor grievances. Then indulging in grey market operations. Of course, with markets not having been doing very well in the last 3-4 years, there has been no grey market. But with Achay Din coming, possibility of grey market is not ruled out. So more grey market, more severe action. And front running, we have had a couple of cases in front running, particularly mutual fund where the managers indulge in front running, wherein they like to take profit for themselves before doing the operations of the mutual fund or any other fund that they manage. That is also considered to be a very serious violation by the SEBI and the regulators. These are some, that is a very indicative list. There could be much more, like collective investment schemes. Now we are seeing a lot of Ponzi schemes, Sarda scam, that is so many schemes where collective investment schemes are being operated without registration. That could be a violation. New violations, new non-compliances, the list could go on, but the action would be the same. What are the types of action? One, where SEBI initiates the action, which would mean they would first investigate. To be fair, they would love to collect facts first. So the first thing would be a simple letter that would come from SEBI, a one-page letter or sometimes only an email that we have been noticing some activity in your script. Please provide the details as to who is being buying or who is being selling. Even before that, we will know that SEBI is looking into the matter because they will start collecting information from broker or some other person who's doing all the transaction. So they may get in touch with you to say SEBI has sent a letter to us already, be ready. So before that, we are all set with expecting the SEBI letter. For many of us, it may come as a surprise. Then you will wake up and the entire degree phase starts then and there. We say now we've got a letter from SEBI, what do we do? Do we write to them or do we keep quiet or do we respond? How much should we respond? What should we respond? Should we give everything? Should we not say some things? All these questions will start arising. The best thing is to provide everything to them because they already have everything. All that they are doing is reconfirmation of the facts. So if you don't cooperate, that is also a non-compliance. That's a violation. Not cooperating with SEBI could call for some other action. So they are only assimilating facts and reconfirming the information that they have already collected or they are having access to because they are having a 24-hour surveillance and they are online with the stock exchanges. They know what's happening at all points in time. And then on the basis of that investigation and fact finding, they prepare a report and depending upon what kind of violation, they would either initiate adjudication or they would send it to inquiry. Why? What's the difference between the two is when it's adjudication, it goes to the adjudicating officers. And this is normally for technical matters like non-compliance with the takeover or not making an open offer or under the insider trading code or things like that. For very serious violations like operating a CIS without registration, or indulging in grey market operations, it goes to the whole-time member, which is then called as enquiry. So that essentially the basic framework is the same. Only thing is the authority which is looking into the matter. Where it is the whole-time member, then it becomes an enquiry. It is slightly more serious than the adjudication because adjudicating officer's powers or the grade is slightly lesser than that of the whole-time member. Whole-time member has far-reaching powers. He can pass orders like a suspension, not to be associated with the markets for a certain period of time. Whereas adjudicating officer has the power to only levy a penalty. But even then, an adjudicating officer's orders are also quite serious in the sense that the penalties that they can levy can range from a few lakh of rupees to a few crores. Few crores means maximum penalty that can be levied is 25 crores. The adjudicating officer has the power to levy a penalty of 25 crores. So which is not small money. And going by their trend now, minimum penalty that SEBI is levying is about 4 lakhs. For a small non-compliance, not filing a disclosure for one particular year under the takeover regulation. Then they levy a penalty of about 4 lakh rupees. Which is, which makes all the promoters, all the persons who are in that particular situation really weak. So, and then they like to go to SAT because whatever comes under adjudication or enquiry is appealable. And now SAT has also taken a very strict stand and they say as per their own regulation it says 1 lakh per day of non-compliance, which means for so many days of non-compliance the fine should actually be running into several crores of rupees, and the adjudicating officer has actually taken several mitigating factors into account and thereby levied a penalty of only 4 lakhs. So why do you have to come over here and cry? You might as well pay it. So that is the kind of attitude that the SAT has been taking recently. So there is not much of respite even in SAT as of today. So considering this, the other best option would be to opt for a settlement procedure, which is a voluntary step, a mechanism that is taken by the alleged offender. Wherein he says, yes, I might have committed some non-compliance, I will apply for settlement and I settle this matter. Where is a civil matter, it is called as settlement. Where it is a criminal matter, it is called as compound. The procedure is the same. So normally, this is how the procedure is, which we have already seen. You will get a letter from SEBI where the fact finding takes place, then the show cause notice, then the reply. After the reply, you have a personal hearing in which also you can submit additional facts. And if the adjudicating officer is convinced that there is no case, then people have been let off also. There have been many cases in the last 1 year, particularly cases with Ms. Anita Kenkare, adjudicating officer, who has let off at least 3-4 cases wherein she has said, I find no basis on the allegations made in the show cause notice. There is no violation at all. But if it is there, then after asking for additional facts if required, then they will pass an order which will impose a penalty which is appealable before SAT or simply pay the penalty and get out of the matter. In case we are going to initiate settlement, which is a voluntary procedure, at that time we have to submit an application to SEBI in the prescribed format. Once that goes, SEBI will not immediately call us over and settle the matter. They also initiate their internal procedures and try and find out all possible facts with regard to this supposed violation. Whether there could be any other non-compliances which can be settled, or whether this is settleable, or whether it cannot be settled because there is some other matter that is pending, or it's a matter that cannot be settled as per the regulations. So after their internal fact-finding exercises completed, then they will call us over for a meeting which is called as a meeting before the internal committee, wherein there is a formula and then the settlement terms are arrived. Once it is agreed upon, we submit the revised settlement terms and then close the matter by making a payment. So between the two, which is better? Whether we should go for adjudication or we should go for settlement? That's the $1 million question that will be there before us. The moment the show cause notice comes, the first question that will arise is, should I continue in adjudication or should I opt out of this and go for settlement? It depends on what is the kind of violation. First step that you will have to take is what will be the penalty. Because here in adjudication, the penalty is at the discretion of the officer. So one officer, if you look at it, there is a matter where an open offer has not been made. One officer has levied a penalty of 20 lakhs for not having been made, whereas another officer has levied a penalty of 40 lakhs. For the same thing, open offer has not been made. In both the cases, there has been a trigger and open offer has not been made. Why the difference? It could be because of several different factors which are very unique to that particular case. But then the amount is very strikingly different, because here it's 20, the other case it's 40. You cannot question the adjudicating officer, because each one will justify as to why they have put that amount of penalty. So the discretion is with the adjudication officer. Are we ready to take that kind of risk? Left to us. Suppose we say, looking at the precedences, this will probably come only to 10 lakhs. And so we proceed in adjudication. But then when we get the order, it may say this will 20 lakhs. It might be double what you expect. So if we are ready to take the risk and have decided to go with adjudication, we have no choice. Whereas on the other hand, in settlement, the penalty is strictly as per the prescribed formula. So we have the formula with us, we look into the table, we calculate as per the formula, and then we arrive at the amount. And then that's it. There is no discretion involved, and we are sure. So looking at the amount, we can decide. So that is one of the criteria that should help you decide whether you want to go for adjudication or whether you want to go for settlement. Second is, suppose you have certain facts with you which say that your matter is not as serious as is claimed in the show cause notice. Then it is better to opt for adjudication, because you can make a presentation of facts before the adjudicating officer in an adjudication. But in settlement, you are agreeing to your guilt. You say, I am neither guilty nor am I not guilty. Which means indirectly, yes, I am sorry, I have done it and I have made a mistake. So when there is no room for presentation of facts, then if you have anything to defend your case, then you cannot go for settlement. It is better to opt for adjudication. But then the underlying risk is always there that the adjudication officer may not accept whatever facts that you are stating. Unless and until you are very strong, the facts really speak for themselves and you are very convinced that it will exonerate you from the penalties or that the adjudication may be set aside, then only you go for adjudication. Otherwise, if you still feel settlement is better, it's better to opt for settlement. The third factor that we decide is appealable. Adjudication orders are always appealable before the Securities Appellate Tribunal, whereas in settlement, it's not appealable. It's consented to right across the table. They sit on that side, we sit on this side, we shake our hands and say, okay, thank you for the amount, and we pay the amount. So the thing is, it's settled, it's agreed upon. So therefore, in a settlement, matter is not appealable, while in adjudication, it is appealable. So that should be your third factor which will help you decide whether you want to go for adjudication or settlement. However, the small fact that will tilt settlement in favor of settlement is there is no stigma attached. Once you go for settlement, we forget the matter. In nowhere will it be mentioned that so and so violated this provision or did not comply with that provision. All that will be stated is he settled or they settled or the company settled the matter by paying so much amount. With that it's over. So therefore it's really not a penalty. So even the accounting treatment for settlement I think will be slightly different from adjudication. Because adjudication is just not an allowable expense, there is a penalty. The settlement you will have to see. It definitely is not having any stigma, and so if you have any future plans of fundraising or anything like that, it is always better to go for settlement.
In case of further SEBI registration, see, there will be future application for registration of various intermediaries. Will this come as a remark or will they forget?
Settlement will not be considered. Whatever be the proceedings in the IC meeting or in the entire case of settlement will not form a record anywhere. Whereas adjudication will form a record everywhere.
Everywhere.
So when you go for any matter, like suppose the company is planning a rights issue later on, or a fundraising activity, or any, as you say, any intermediary registration, adjudication will always figure.
Come as
It's a negative risk. Whereas when you've gone for settlement, you don't even need to mention it. But as a precaution, everybody mentions that we go for settlement, but what happened during that will not form a record anyway. So definitely you begin on a clean slate. That's where settlement edges out adjudication. Although sometimes the amount that you pay under settlement will be much more than what you pay under adjudication. Sometimes it's even double. But many a times it's half. So it's an enigma, whether you go here or whether you go there. But one thing that edges out or adjudication is because of the stigma factor. So then, once we have decided to go for settlement, when can you go for settlement? Settlement is available only in civil matters and in criminal matters until and unless you receive show cause notice. The moment show cause notice is received saying that criminal action has been initiated by SEBI, then naturally it goes out of settlement, it goes into compounding. And then you can do it voluntarily by yourself before you receive any show cause notice once you become aware. Suppose now we are having the secretarial audit that is happening in it has to happen for every company, listed companies particularly. So while secretarial audit is being done, you will immediately know where are the non-compliances, what are the non-compliances and how many of them. So voluntarily you may opt for settlement before it comes to the notice of the regulatory authority. Or even if it comes to the knowledge, many of them say, do we put our head into the lion's mouth or do we wait for the lion to roar? So it's our choice again. We can wait. The only thing is the amount of settlement is slightly more when a show cause notice comes from SEBI or when you do it voluntarily. Again, it's a conscious decision, and as our previous speaker was saying, now with corporate governance and then independent directors' responsibilities having increased, one of the responsibility of the independent director is to check compliance of the various laws. And then he may say, I have seen that you are not complying with these laws, your secretarial audit report says this. And if I don't point it out and encourage you or advise you to go for settlement, my future will be at stake. Then you might be forced to go for settlement. So now settlement is becoming a more possible option because of the various changes in the scenario as of today, compliance scenario as of today. But still the choice is still with the management of the company. They want to do it voluntarily by themselves before SEBI shoots out any letter, or they can do it after adjudication is initiated. They can even do it after the adjudication order has been passed or after the matter has been taken up with SAT. So you have different stages. You can do it before, you can do it after adjudication, that's after show cause notice, or after adjudication order is passed, or after you have filed an appeal with SAT. So at any stage, the settlement process can be opted for. And then once it is decided, you have to make an application in Form A, that's a specified format, along with all waivers and undertakings. And you have to attach or you have to enclose a fee of 10,000 rupees per applicant. Now why per applicant? Suppose let's say there is a violation, that's 8.2, earlier on there was that 8.2 filing or 7.1A non-filing, now it is called as 21.1, 21.2 non-filing or 30 non-filing under SEBI SAST regulations. Now there are 10 promoters. And let's presume all the 10 promoters have not filed or made their disclosures under regulation 30. Now action will be initiated on all the 10 of them because it's their individual responsibility to file under regulation 30. Now instead of each one of them making an application, for convenience, one of the 10 will make the settlement application on behalf of the other 9. But fee to be paid will however be 10,000 into 10, which is 1 lakh rupees. So fees is 10,000 per applicant. It was 5,000 earlier, revised 2 weeks ago. Now it is 10,000 rupees per applicant, and that is non-refundable, irrespective of what is the fate of the application. And along with that, you have to submit necessary enclosures. What are the enclosures we will be seeing little later. And remember, even if one of those enclosures is not there, the application comes back in total. And sometimes in one of my cases itself, there was a company which did not prepare financial statements because it was in one of those tax payments. So we had clearly mentioned in the covering letter and also in the annexure pertaining to financial statements that this company, no financials are submitted because this company is not required to and does not maintain or bring any financial statement. They didn't bother to read it. They said this applicant has no financial statements and sent the entire bunch. It was such a big bunch because there were 8 applicants. Sent back the whole thing. And then after that, we had to call them up. We had to explain to them. She said, send the law, which says that financial statements are not required to be prepared. So we had to research it, get that particular law, attach it, then again resubmit the whole thing. And if you cross the time limit, then it's gone. So we have to be very careful. So therefore, my simple advice here is, when you are attaching all the enclosures, be doubly sure that all the enclosures are initial. There is a round seal on all the pages of the application, because sometimes it will come back saying there is no seal. Sometimes it will say there is no initial. Sometimes it will say that the full auditors, one of the enclosures required is the annual report. Many applicants are private limited companies, so they don't print the annual report. SIT is always used to seeing very beautiful, colorful annual reports. So in one particular case, only those plain papers were sent, and she said they returned it saying that the full annual report has not been enclosed. So then we had to say, this is the full annual report, please see director's report on this page number, this on this page number, this on this page number. So as a matter of precaution, on the covering letter you might even mention that since it's a private limited company, there are no glossy covers and glossy annual reports. The full annual report is enclosed as annexure. So that, you know, like in one of the forums somebody was saying some of the jobs are highly clerical. So they are only told to see check this, not they reject. So they are not thought to go beyond and see whether this meets the requirement or this is in accordance with the law. So since they don't know and we don't want it to come back, let us be careful in putting everything down in the covering letter and highlighting it, underlining it, whatever you want to do, so that it catches their attention. These are the precautions that we must take while submitting the enclosures. And then it has to be sent to the enforcement division of city. Where the matter is before adjudicating officer, then what we should do is mark a copy of this application to the adjudication officer. You did not have to send the entire bunch to the adjudication officer, only the covering letter stating that this has been filed and we have now opted for settlement. So the reason being, he will keep that procedure in abeyance, wait for the outcome of the settlement, and then thereafter decide whether what he should do on the show cause notice he has sent. You will have to send a waiver, set of waivers. What do we essentially waive? We waive off all hearings before somebody else, the post appealable procedures. Then we waive off saying we cannot, any finding or any statement of fact we cannot submit. Then we also have to waive off saying X is partial or X has certain prejudice against me. So I don't want X to be present in the hearing. We cannot, that kind of right is waived off. So even if we don't like X or we don't like his face, we have to tolerate him in the settlement proceedings because we have waived off that right. Then we can also not claim that somebody is prejudiced or somebody is having a bias. That those kind of things are completely waived off. Most important thing that we waive off is the law of limitation, wherein in case they come to know that there has been some violation which has been wrongly stated or some fact which we have suppressed and they want to reopen the case, they can do it after any number of years, maybe 10 years, 15 years. We waive off the right to limitation. They can reopen the case at any time that they want. So therefore these waivers which go on the stamp paper of 200 rupees is very crucial because we waive off most of the things when we go for settlement. The only positive attribute for which we are doing it is we want to settle it peacefully, we do not want any stigma at all. And what are the annexures that go with the application? Copy of the PAN card of all the applicants. Where it is an individual applicant, we have to say self-attested. If we don't put the word self-attested, it will come back. So we have to put self-attested, and where it is a company, we have to say certified true copy and put the chart, the round seal. If you don't put that, it comes back. Then copy of the income tax returns filed by the applicants for the last 3 years. So many people become anxious when they read this. So how can we send the full income tax returns? You don't need to send the entire bunch, only the front page, the first page, to say that tax returns have been filed. Because if you, in one of the cases they said that tax returns have not been filed, then